Oh hi. Bila Tserkva, the city in Kiev region of Ukraine. The administrative center of the Bila Tserkva district. Till 2020 was the city of regional subordination. The economic and cultural center of the capital economic region and also the climatic and balneological resort located in 80 km to the south from Kiev on the river Ros. For the first time the name Bila Tserkva is mentioned in the Ipatevsky Chronicle of 1115. The city is founded by Yaroslav the Wise as fortress for protection against nomads, and Yuriev is called. A Christian name of Yaroslav the Wise, Yuri, or Georgi. Origin of the name. Concerning origin of the name of Bila Tserkva there are several versions. One of them tells that Mongol Tatars attacked and reduced to ashes the village. There was on the mountain only a white stone church. It also gave the name to the city. Before there was a name Yuriev, which comes from an Orthodox name of its founder Yaroslav the Wise. Bila Tserkva was constructed as Fortress Yuriev in 1032 by Yaroslav the Wise. Fortress was called by a Christian name of the Prince Yuriev. In 1050 he built on Zamkova Hora the city's the Episcopal Church, whether whitewashed, whether constructed of a silver nut-hewn birch. Delivered highly on the mountain, the church became remarkable. Locals called church white, and when Tatars destroyed Yuriev, the new city which was restored after ruin received the name Bila Tserkva. Settlements with such name are in Serbia, Moldova, Bulgaria, etc. There were they probably because of the similar reasons. Also there are authors' versions, including the following. From white birch logs. Creation of the temple in honor of a victory over the woman Bila. From a remaining balance of white stone church. Theory of heredity of the names Yuriev and Bila Tserkva. The essence of the theory consists in transformation of primary name, city of Church of Saint White, Georgi, and Church White. Is the most probable, as in Saint Georgi's people always called white. It is remarkable that Jewish names of Bila Tserkva, Shvartsi Tuma, that means black nekistota. Such name is antiphrasy. The city is located in the southwest of Kiev region, holds an advantageous geographical location. Near it passes Highway Street, Petersburg, Kiev. The distance to the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, makes 84 km. To the capital of the Russian Federation, Moscow minus 950 km. To the capital of the Czech Republic, Prague minus 1020 km. To the capital of the Republic of Poland, Warsaw minus 800 km. The distance to the airport Boryspil makes 120 km. The proximity to Kiev, convenient transport connection, the developed social and economic infrastructure in combination with landscape and an environment give to the city considerable investment and tourist attractiveness. The main reservoir is the river Ros, which 16 km flows, generally in the southern part of the city, separating the central regions from Zaraki. Northern Zaraki and residential Massif Sandy and Tarashansky. The river of the channel flows Bila Tserkva 9.6 km and flows into Ros, and in the natural boundary of Draya there is a Sukharsky stream 9.6 km long. Through Ros and city boundaries 4 bridges are laid. 2 pedestrian. Derevny Bridge and Zarchansky Dam are rowing. And 2 automobile. The river to the channel is crossed by a significant amount of small bridges of various design. In the downtown, on the left riverbank Ros, in the natural boundaries Tserkva Hora, archaeologists found an occupation layer with old Russian potter ceramics of the 11th, 12th centuries, slate Pryaslitsa and other materials. There was Old Russian relief for the first time mentioned in the chronicle under 1072. The Yevsky bishop Mikhail participated in transferring of relics of Saints Boris and Gleb. So, excavation was made by specialists of Institute of Archaeology of NAN of Ukraine on the place of restoration of Church Evs Georgi. 2011-2012. A number of artifacts of different historical periods, from times of Kievan Rus to the 18th, 19th century was revealed. All of them are transferred to the Bila Tserkva Museum of Local Law for the purpose of the exposure equipment, the Museum of Finds of Tserkva Hora. In particular it was found a cross and Engolpian reliquary of the first half of the 13th century, a millstone, a moulding on shaft of times of Yaroslav the Wise, a coin, tips of copies, triggers and bone overlays for muskets and so forth. Also on Tserkva Hora was the bases of ancient Piaseczydny Orthodox Church of the 11th, 13th centuries are added to the category of museum objects. Now 1.5 apses which remained up to now after the destructions connected with construction of the bridge through Ros from Soviet period are preserved. Yuryev logged in the fortified cities built by Yaroslav the Wise in the middle of the 11th century down the river of Ros. The ancient settlement occupied the Kapostinets. The area -2 hectares. On the river bank. It apparently was destroyed and burned by Cumans in 1095. Again Yuryev builds up Svyatopolk in 1103 a little aside. On the place of the old settlement in the 16th century the Bila Tserkva castle was built. On the western outskirts of the city. Up the river Ros. In Paliev's natural boundary the mountain other roundish ancient settlement. Diameter of 55 m. is found. This settlement was strengthened by 2 rows of concentric shaft. At inspections the old Russian potter's ceramics of the 12th, 13th centuries, objects from metal, a bronze gilded panagia with Saint George's image and a 6-pointed cross are found. Around the ancient settlement not strengthened settlements are located. History. At the city the earth shaft, a part of Zmayevi shaft lasted. Its remaining balance remained between Yaroslav the Wise's streets and Lesser Bassa. 11/16th century. Presumably, Bila Tserkva is at the place of the medieval town of Yuryev, which location is connected with the ancient settlement Tserkva Hora. This city is founded in 1032 by the Kiev prince Yaroslav the Wise. Initially Yuryev. Zhirgev. According to a Christian name of Yaroslav the Wise, Yuri Georgi was called. The beginning of the 11th century is noted by continuous attacks of Pekinegs on the southern outskirts of the Kiev state. As a result of border of Russia were removed on the north to Stoknes coast. In 1017 the Kiev Prince Yaroslav the Wise won a victory over Pechenegs and pushed aside them on the south. For strengthening of the southern boundaries of the state along Rosi in 1032 construction of the defensive line, the system of the sentry fortresses connected among themselves by huge embankments and ditches began. In 1032 there were Korsun, Beguza, Stebliev, Volodarka, Analystic Volodarev, and other settlements of Porosa. It was the Porosky defensive line. And this year on the rocky left coast of Rosi there was a military feudal castle which received the name Yuryev, in honor of a Christian name of Yaroslav the Wise, Yuri. The Lok acquired subsequently the town which at the end of age became centuries the cathedral center of the Porosky diocese. The mountain with the Detnets. Lok. Placed on it was the heart of the city. Also on the mountain there was a white stone cathedral, obligatory attribute of the diocesan center. Yuryev lived in permanent tension. Attacks of Pechenegs were replaced by pressure of Cumans, and later Mongol Tatars. The city was to nomads as a bone in a throat, constantly interfering with their campaigns on the north. More than once it was razed to the ground. Last time Yuryev was devastated by nomads in the 13th century, plans to revive with the new name, Bila Tserkva. Yuryev burned by nomads left behind only high half-ruined episcopal cathedral. This construction, constructed of a white stone, long time served immigrants as a reference point among the dense and wild woods which covered then the valley of the small river Ros. Therefore the place where there was a cathedral, and then in the city which rose from princely Yuryev's ruins on the rocky coast received the name Bila Tserkva. The cathedral to which the city is obliged by the name disappeared in a hurricane of historical events. Now nobody will probably tell by whom and when it was destroyed. During the archaeological excavations which are carried out in the 20th century on Zamkova Hora, a remaining balance of this construction was found. In 1362 Bila Tserkva together with the Kiev Principality was annexed to Lithuania, and after the Lublin Union 1569 was a part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. The town became the center of a starostvo, administrative unit, and purchased value of the major strategic point in the south of the state. In 1589 the Polish King Sigismund approved the privileges of the city on Diet in Warsaw, having provided to Bila Tserkva and its inhabitants the Magdeburg right. In the middle of the 16th century, for protection of the state against Tatars in Bila Tserkva, the lock in which there was a permanent Polish garrison containing up to 2,000 soldiers and officers was constructed. The mountain on which then the lock was placed is called Castle. The first lock in Bila Tserkva was constructed in 1550 by the voivode of Prince Semyon Pronsky, as the city was on the Black Way which was gone by Tatars and it needed to be protected. The city was also strengthened by a paling. In 1570 the lock was considerably removed. The Prince Konstantin Vasily Ostrowski strengthens and reconstructs the lock. At the end of the 16th century Bila Tserkva became the city well known on all Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It was promoted by a revolt of the citizens angered by cancellation by the head, Janusz Ostrowski, the Magdeburg right in the city. In 1589 they captured the lock with weapon and ammunition and nearly a year held the city in the hands. In 1591 the country Cossack revolt, which became a harbinger of the period of permanent wars between Ukraine and Poland, began capture of the Bila Tserkva castle. At the head of a revolt there was Krzysztof Kaczynski. 17–the 18th century. In 1651 Bogdan Khmelnytsky signed the Bila Tserkva peace treaty with the Polish government after failure in Berestecki fight. In 1616 in the city there were 300 yards of petty bourgeoisie and 300 Cossack. At the time of liberating war of 1648, 1657 Bila Tserkva, which was at the time quite considerable city lying on a great way, the center of a Starostvo regiment and had more than 1,000 yards, became one of the most important strongpoints of the Cossack army. Longtime Bogdan Khmelnytsky with the main Bayern efforts was located in the Bila Tserkva castle, dispatching across all Ukraine appeals to fight from here. 18 on September 28. 1651 the agreement between Polish Szlachta the government and the hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky, which received the name the Bila Tserkva agreement, was concluded here. In 1663 during fight between the Polish army and Ivan Serko's groups the lock in Bila Tserkva was almost destroyed. But next year it was built up again, having strengthened by the most modern rules of the fortification equipment, it became almost unapproachable. Neither Ivan Brukovetsky's troops in 1665, nor Pyotr Doroshenko in 1667, 1669 and in 1672 could take it. Since 1660 Bila Tserkva alternately belonged to the Russian Kingdom, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, some time of Porusia even was the neutral territory. In 1665 in the Battle of Bila Tserkva the group of Kalmyks on service of the Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich was crushed Polish by the Hussar and Reta. In 1667 the Commandant January Stakursky constructed a church in St. George's Monastery in Bila Tserkva. The beginning of the 18th century in Ukraine is designated by a big revolt of Cossacks under the leadership of the Bila Tserkva and Fastovsky Colonel Semyon Pilya against Poland. Pilya in 1702 with 10,000 group took Bila Tserkva in a siege. After several unsuccessful storms the colonel resorted to cunning. Having taken the commandant prisoner, he forced the lock to capitulate. The city became the center of a revolt, to it unfortunate peasants from everywhere stretched. The population of Bila Tserkva at the time reached 70,000, the lock constantly became stronger. In 1703 Poles managed to suppress a revolt, and the same year the right bank was occupied by the Russian troops. Pilya was arrested and sent to Siberia. Not the last role in it was played by the hetman Mazepa. Ivan Mazepa was born near Bila Tserkva in an entail property, the village of Maspincy, and considered this region the homeland. In 1703 he lodged in the Bila Tserkva castle and conceived to make the city the property. In the Bila Tserkva castle the hetman felt safe. Exactly there passed a considerable part of his life. Here he acquired the lion's share of the riches and became one of the richest feudal lords in Europe. Here executed Kochubey and the Spark. On some sources, the treasury of the hetman was found in the Bila Tserkva castle. Ivan Mazepa transported a considerable part of income from the 20,000 manors on construction of cult constructions. Across all Ukraine he lifted magnificent churches in style of the Ukrainian Baroque. In 1706 construction of big stone church there began Mazeppa in the homeland in Bila Tserkva. Bloody events of 1708 and the subsequent transfer of the city of Poland and left this construction unfinished. Up to now lived only a part of the church which has the name Nikolskaya. In 1743 the head Stanislav Jablonovsky constructed a church and the monastery of an award of Jesuits in Bila Tserkva. Through the 18th century Bila Tserkva often witnessed popular uprisings which wreath was Kolyevshchina. The great crown hetman Kavry Brunitsky in 1774 received one of the richest table manners in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth for suppression of Kolyevshchina, the Bila Tserkva Starostwo. At the end of 1778 he entered ownership of these manors which were called the Bila Tserkva County since then and built here subsequently the palace. In 1793 the city was attached to Russia. For a long time, till the 20th century, Belachina became the ancestral lands of family of Brunitsky. Bila Tserkva and Alexandria were the valid duchy with the yard, with a huge number of people who ate around the yard, with big stables of thoroughbred horses, with hunting on which all aristocracy of Southwest Edge here gathered that Nikolai Berdyaev in Self-Knowledge wrote about Brunitsky times in Bila Tserkva. Brunitsky had ambiguous influence on the main residents. They made Bila Tserkva the city which lost administrative value for the state. By order of Catherine II and not without Brunitsky decree, the lock was destroyed, the Bila Tserkva Starostvo was liquidated, the district center was transferred in cornflowers, the city from state property passed into personal. In his a century the town of Bila Tserkva was the volist center of the White and Sokovsky volist of the Vasilkovsky county of the Kiev province. In 1806 Brunitsky signed a contract with the Jewish community which was granted permission for the settlement and construction in the city. Jews brought big trade and craft to Bila Tserkva. In 1801-1806 Brunitsky in the downtown constructed malls, then stimulated further resettlement of Jews in Bila Tserkva and caused basic change of ethnic structure of urban population. In 1918 Bila Tserkva again at the top of the voice declared itself. In this city the big force which stirred up all Ukraine later rallied. In September nobody in the city of Kiev imagined that free persons who have talent can be constructed to appear in time, even in such insignificant place as Bila Tserkva. These words, offensive for Bila Tserkva, from White God of Mikhail Bulgakov concern Toroptsu, Petlura and Vinichenko and once again confirmed the fact that this city played the leading role in creation of the Directory of the Ukrainian People's Republic. Evgeny Konovalts's efforts in August-September 1918 in Bila Tserkva founded separate group of Sichevi Sagittariuses of the Ukrainian power. In November 1918 in Bila Tserkva the armed revolt under the leadership of Simon Petlura and Vladimir Vinichenko began. There was forming of the main forces of the Directory. Here the message about return of the power of independent UN was for the first time printed. More than a month the city over Rossiu was the headquarters of forces of insurgents, actually the second capital of Ukraine. From here the 60,000 army which occupied on December 14, 1918 Kiev, which was under control of troops of the Hetman Skoropadsky, mainly ethnic Russians, acted. In August 1921 in the city the Cossack Rada of Right Bank Ukraine was formed. Great Patriotic War. On July 16, 1941, Bila Tserkva was occupied by the German troops, and 902 days the city was in occupation. However, the city did not stop resistance. 10 diversionary groups were created. The underground organizations worked. From the professional soldiers who got to an environment and local population in the area, guerrilla groups, for example, the Sokol group headed by the captain of the Red Army A.K. Krzyzanowski and the commissioner Idast Moskolenk, totaling about 100 people, were organized. Bila Tserkva was freed by the Soviet troops of the First Ukrainian Front on January 4, 1944 during Zhytomyr and Berdychevsky offensive transaction. On December 24, 1943, on January 14, 1944. After the end of persistent fights, the city was almost completely destroyed. The country leaders highly appreciated heroism of the bodies, exempting the city from aggressors.
Today, on January 4, at 21 o'clock, the capital of our homeland, Moscow, on behalf of the homeland, salutes to our valorous troops which freed the city of Bila Tserkva. 12 artillery volleys from 124 tools.
The order of the Supreme Commander on January 4, 1944, No. 55. Long-time Bila Tserkva was the usual country town until in 1972 constructed industrial giant, Bila Tserkovshchina, here. Nowadays just Krozava. Then industrial enterprises began to grow in the city. It turned into the industrial center, one of the most powerful knots of chemical industry of Usr. In the 70s, violently the population of the city began to grow. In 2 decades it increased almost by 100,000. After accident on the CDS, the city accepted more than 1,700 immigrants from an exclusion zone. In 1986, the Bila Tserkva Hotel, architect A. Karkavenko, was constructed here. Modern Bila Tserkva, the city with the population about card people, stretched in Rosie's Valley on both of its parties. From the right coast of the valley, the fine panorama of the city opens. Departure from Bila Tserkva in the Tarashonsky direction. The foreground covers a complex of dakas. Further, the newest residential districts of multi-storied building, Tarashonsky and Sandy Massif stretch. The lowest part of the Valley of Rosie is occupied with the area of private building. The private sector of Bila Tserkva is not similar to rural. There are no considerable garden spaces. Averages by the sizes, mainly brick, cost lodges closely to each other and are surrounded with small courtyard.
The distance shot of a panorama is occupied by continuous multi-storied building over which places pipes of the numerous enterprises act.
In the east of the city, the big industrial hub was stretched. Except Prozova, the plants of rubber and asbestotechnicheski products, mechanical, tire, no. 2. The Bila Tserkva Tetsi other enterprises are located here. The most part of able-bodied population of Bila Tserkva works exactly here. Bila Tserkva is divided into the main areas. Massif Levenevskogo, Pesheny and Tarashonsky Massifs, Residential District Pioneer, Dienzaray, Zarki, District of the Railway Settlement, Rotek, Station, Center, Massif Pavlichenko. Staff. Former military camp of Gayok. The climate is moderately continental, warm, with sufficient moistening. Soft winter. Average temperature of January 6°C. Warm summer. Average temperature of July from 18 to 20°C. Rainfall about 600 mm a year. An average annual amount of precipitation -500, 600 mm, moistening coefficient -1.3. Average annual temperature +6.9 C. The average duration of the bezmorozny. Vegetative. Period -160, 170 days. Winds of the western and southwest directions prevail. The population of Bila Tserkva to the middle of the 20th century was small. Considerably its quantity after the Great Patriotic War, when almost all Jewish people were exterminated, decreased.
However, after the announcement of all union construction of the RD Kakuka Kopererabatovishchi enterprises and 2 plants of the consolidation Balachina, the population of the city grew more than twice.
The modern Massif Levanevskogo adjacent to these plants became the place of concentration about 60% of all residents of Bila Tserkva.
At the beginning of the 90th, some reduction of the population, generally because of turning of production at a number of the enterprises of the city, and emigration of Jewish people to Israel took place.
Now process of slow growth of number of residents of Bila Tserkva is noticed, that also creation of the branch service industry is connected with recovery of work of many enterprises. Jews appeared in Bila Tserkva in the 16th century. It were mainly small traders. In 1648 a considerable part of the Jewish community of the city was exterminated or expelled by Cossacks of Khmelnytskyi.
The conclusion in 1806 of Brunitskymi of the agreement with the Jewish community, which was granted permission for the settlement and construction in the city, became rescue for economy.
However, Brunitsky legalized their stay in the city and even constructed for Jews in the downtown malls. Jews brought big trade and craft to Bila Tserkva. It became not of important transport ways. Through it there passed numerous government, military, post relays and merchant caravans. Jews left to Bila Tserkva rather impressive inheritance. It both buildings of a synagogue, and apartment houses, and shops, and schools, and hospitals. By 1941 the Jewish town was much richer in architecture, and is more harmonious, but ruthless bombings of the city in 1941 deprived Bila Tserkva the most part of buildings. In 1989 38,23 Jews lived in Bila Tserkva. On a census of 2001 150 Jews lived in the city. Industry. At the beginning of the 20th century Bila Tserkva became one of the largest industrial and shopping centers of the Kiev province. In 1900 worked here. Plant of farm vehicles, 5 brick, 6 tanning, brewing, 2 medevareni and 4 soap factories, tobacco, kilzovi and 2 candy factories, 4 metalwork workshops, 42 smithies, 2 voltsovi watermills, 13 kruperushka, 2 creameries. Food industry.
The Bila Tserkva Cannery Public Joint Stock Company, founded in 1858, is one of leading enterprises on processing of agricultural raw materials in the Kiev region.
Production capacity of the plant minus 25 million conventional cans a year that allows to make products big production lots. The area of the land plot minus 7.62 hectares. In 2008 near the city of Bila Tserkva dairy plant (BEP) was constructed.
Power of plant minus 250 tons of processing of milk a day.
Bila Tserkva dairy plant is the only thing in Ukraine the supplier of dairy mixes for ice cream and cocktails of the McDonald's Ukraine Limited Company. In June 2011 the international company, Marevan Food Holding, in common with the strategic partner, the Japanese food holding, Nissin Foods Holdings, declared completion of construction of the plant in Bila Tserkva. At the plant of the company the products under the Rolton trademark will be made. Already now in the Marevan Food Ukraine company more than 400 employees work. Investments into this project make about $35 million. Tserkva Ukraine, renamed in 2010 from Tserkva, is engaged in production of dairy products and ice cream. Communication. Cellular communication in the city is provided by Ganzam operators.
Kyivstar, Vodafone, Lifeco,
CM,
Kiplanet Intertelecom,
UMTS, 3G, Leica Mobile. Kyivstar, Vodafone, Lifeco since 2015. WiMAX, Freshtel and Giraffe. Finance. In the territory of the city, the Kiev Regional Chamber of Commerce and Industry, 9 markets, 145 shops of food, 14 shops of household chemicals, more than 60 objects of retail trade, 16 sport shops, more than 120th furniture specialty, 7 the equipment special, 17 fabrics, accessories, yarn, 46 shops of a men's and women's clothing, 22 jewelry, about 10 malls and the centers function. In Bila Tserkva more than 40 gas stations and complexes which are the property of large operators of the market of CXBD, Amic, Ukretatnafta, WOG, OKO and others work. Also, in the city about 15 motor shows, about 56 shops of auto parts, 5 driving schools, 26 parkings, garage cooperatives. Railway station. Through the city there pass highways of the European value. Chernihiv, Brovara, Kiev, Boerka, Plevik, Bila Tserkva, Stavish, Zashkov, Uman, the resident of Ulyanovsk, Lyubashevka, Zoktan, Odessa. In 95. Also international Kiev, Cornflowers, Bila Tserkva, Stavish, Uman, the resident of Ulyanovsk, Zoktan, Odessa. MO5. Railway line Fastov, Miranovka. In the city function the railway station which was opened in 1876 and bus station of the suburban message.
In plans of the strategy of development for the city till 2025, construction of city bus station near Odeskaya route near the city.
Rotek station. Also, in the city the cash desk of advanced sale of air tickets, the agency of air traffics, Kayavia, which is on Vokalnaya Street 22 works. Public transport is provided by 6 trolleybus routes, and 24 the share taxi.
The utility company, Bila Tserkva Cargo Aviation Complex, is created in 2000 based on the Bila Tserkva aircraft repair plant of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.
Tserkva is located in the western part of the city of Bila, Tserkva. The enterprise has the airfield of A class 4D. This entered in the State Register of Civil Airfields of Ukraine, from not equipped at PF 2542M in size. Ruleshny paths, parking for planes, is serviceable in the afternoon by rules of visual flights. The industrial site located at distance of 0.5 km from airfield with access automobile and railway tracks, with storage of oil products, with complete infrastructure for performance of works on prolongation of a resource of the aircraft equipment in two-body of hangar type equipped with building berths, ventilation systems, lighting and provided with all necessary types of energy.
Plane hangars.
With a one size of 60 by 60 m, the second -106 by 58 m. Works on prolongation of a resource are performed by L-76 and -12 and -72 and -74 planes and -24 and -26. Now maintenance on floor spaces of Kiev, VAC, there undergo both domestic aircrafts, and vessels from the FSU and beyond.
Based on airfield of Kiev, VAC, the Pilot Bila Tserkva Aero Club Public Organization and Limited Company, International Aviation Center of Preparation.
City problems. The community of the city faced various experiments of the city authorities more than once. In 2008, it is the construction plan of the electro-steel rolling plant which could worsen significantly an ecological situation in Bila Tserkva. There were several referenda which decision were not taken into account. At the moment construction is frozen, but there is a possibility of resumption of work. In 2011, the group of Muslim activists, generally representatives of the Azerbaijani and Chechen diaspora, began process of construction on the place of nowadays closed school No. 10 of the mosque with minarets, without having held consultations with community. Public meetings unanimously told about inexpediency of construction of the mosque in Bila Tserkva. However, in Kiev and also the city had considered its xenophobia manifestation. Culture, leisure and sport. Theater, music, cinema. Kiev Academic Regional Musical and Drama Theater of P.K. Saksagansky. Bila Tserkva, the largest cultural center of Kiev region. The cultural potential and achievements in the field of culture the city for many years is in vanguard of Kyiv. Since 1933 in the city the Kiev Academic Regional Musical and Drama Theater of Pana Saksagansky is founded. Performances of theater take place almost completely in the state Ukrainian, occasionally in Russian.
Thanks to the petition of the director and artistic director of theater of the Honored Worker of Arts of Ukraine Vyacheslav Uskov, theater returned a name regional which it had before the Great Patriotic War.
Now the on-stage performance group of theater was replenished with young actors and directors, graduates of theatrical higher education institutions of Kiev, Kharkiv and Ivano-Frankivsk.
Also since 1924, the heart of Bila Tserkva on Zamkova Hora contains an specially built modern building, the Bila Tserkva Museum of Local Lore.
It is the considerable city and regional center of culture, science and education in which a large number of monuments of material and spiritual culture of the southern Kayashchina is collected. Based on the museum local history readings, the scientific and practical conferences of various levels devoted to outstanding events of history and the present are annually held. Their materials are printed. After restoration in the building of a church, the house of organ and chamber music is open. The body was established on March 7, 1990 by Czechoslovak firm Rieger Kloss. Total number of pipes -2734. Also in the city 3 palaces of culture, Bilotsakov Maz Recreation Center, the Rozava PC, the PC of NL Center RT, Movie Theater of A. Dafhenko, 6 clubs, 13 libraries, 3 schools of arts, 4 music schools, the Center of Creativity of Children and Youths, Sunflower, the House of Art Creativity, the House of Young Technicians Work. In Bila Tserkva -24 collectives of national amateur performance.
Among them, National Ensemble of the Dance Age Mate, Ensemble of Violinists of Elementary and High School of DMNO.
For the children's dancing group Happy Childhood, a men's choral chapel, municipal brass band, etc. Festivals of various levels are held. Rainbow over Rosiu, musical opening in Bila Tserkva, Indian Summer, musical meetings in Brunitsky Palace, Nest, Poetic Winter, Christmas Stars, and All-Ukrainian Festival of Young Direction of Lesikarbasa. Parks. In the city there are a lot of small squares and parks located in the historic center. Plays an important role in cultural life of Bila Tserkva long since the central city park of culture and rest of T.G. Shevchenko. Sepkan 5 of T.G. Shevchenko, to whom in 2012 80 years were performed, is known. Also in the downtown the Park of Glory is located. On the western outskirts picturesque Alexandria was stretched. Along Klinicheskaya Street the Park of Builders is located. The military served as the cemetery earlier. Now there the city skating rink Ice Age works and the church is built. In the city there are 3 boulevards. Alexandrovsky Boulevard beginning with the residential district, Victory, crosses residential district Steens station and comes to an end in the central part of the city.
Closes the boulevard Cathedral Square.
Boulevard Mikhail Brashevsky, a machine building plant NL Snochna Prozvodstvenoi Предприятие Bela Tserkva, extends from the area on May 1 to Pavlichenko Street. Boulevard Princess Olga is located between the 3rd and 4th residential districts of the Massif Levanevsky. In the city of Bila Tserkva of 2 football clubs which play at the Bila Tserkva Stadium, manpower reserves. The Arsenal. Bila Tserkva is formed in 2006 and acts in the 2nd League of the Championship of Ukraine. Vru Football Club. It is founded in 1983. Former names: Dynamo of Irpin, 1983-1988. Dynamo Bila Tserkva, 1988-1992. Ross, 1992, 1994, 1996, 1997.
Transimpex Ross Transimpex, House Builder, Raganda.
1997, 2002. The modern name since February 2002. Sports facilities of the City Basketball Club, the Seven Sports Club, Federation of Chess, Committee on Physical Culture and Sport, Sports Club, Bjervestnik, Sports Club for Children and Young People, 2 children's and youth sports schools, 3 stadiums.
Since 1987 in the city of Bila, Tserkva there is the Bila Tserkva Marathon, which in the late 80s, the beginning of the 1998 years, was nearly the strongest sporting event in the territory of the former Russia.
Start. The finish area is located near the Arboretum Alexandria. It is certified by the International Athletic Federation. The route of a run passes on the central city streets. Within the competitions also starts at a distance. Satellites for adults and for children are carried out.
Since 1995 on the massive Levenevskogo, the Kiev Regional Lyceum boarding school of physical culture and sport.
Halifks, which provides development of sports capabilities and talents of children and youth for the purpose of training of athletes in the national teams of Team of Ukraine in sports functions. From the moment of opening on February 1, 2008, a skating rink, Ice Age, became the favorite vacation spot Bila Tserkva in different age categories. The size of an ice skating rink is 2754 m that allows to hold figure skating and hockey trainings, and also to use an ice skating rink as the site for holding sports competitions.
With an accomplishment of the national program, Hockey of Ukraine in 2012 openly covered arena with an artificial ice covering.
Accommodates 450 viewers. Also, the ice arena is similar to those which were open in Kiev, Donetsk, Petrovsk and Kalish.
On August 22, 2013 on the Sandy Arady Sports Center Smena, where pupils of sports school Smena will be able to train, was open to play sports. Everyone Bila Tserkva, and also regional and nationwide competitions will be held.
In Bila Tserkva, scenes of movies, Queen of Gas Station, namely a scene with bees at Shevchenko Square, and Lord Andrei, in the Arboretum Alexandria, were shot. On the house where the scene of the movie, Queen of Gas Station, was shot, the commemorative plaque of Nadezhda Rumyantseva is established. The truth modestly held back that who was the original owner of this house. Namely Juusak Nemitz with family. It is moved in the mid-30s as a fist to Central Asia. In 1980, a serial feature film, Tenderness to the Roaring Animal, was shot. In the Arboretum Alexandria episodes of the movie, The Road to Sek, were removed. In the movie it is possible to see Long's colonnade, ruins composition and the building of administration. In 2013, scenes from series Last Janissar and So Far the Village Sleeps were shot. In October 2014 in Bila Tserkva there took place shootings of the Ukraine Without Money program. Bila Tserkva in literature. Olsgoncher.
The novel The Person and Weapon, about students battalion of the Bila Tserkva Agricultural Institute participating in the Great Patriotic War.
Repeatedly happened in Bila Tserkva at meetings with students and readers of libraries. Henryk Sienkiewicz, By Fire and Sword. Therefore everyone who could ran to Khmelnytskyi, ran away, even the Schleicht when other way to rescue was not. So Khmelnytsky multiplied and multiplied the forces, and if not at once moved to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, if long sat out in Bila Tserkva, then mainly to introduce an order in those unruly and wild forces, etc. Mikhail Bulgakov, White Guard. Bila Tserkva is mentioned not less than 3 times. In the story by Ostap of Bechikacha, at Anna Denisonika Shiva, Cherry. Konstantin Pastovsky, Story About Life. In the first book, Far Years, action happens near Bila Tserkva. Ian Drutz. Novel Bila Tserkva. Science and Education. General Secondary Education Bila Tserkva. It is provided by 25 general educational institutions. Collegium, Lyceum, 2 gymnasiums, 5 specialized comprehensive schools, 13 comprehensive schools I-3 of steps, 1 school I of a step, special comprehensive school, and 1 private teaching and educational complex. In these institutions in 2012/2013 enough 18463 pupils study. B-sides in the city 2 evening. Replaceable. Comprehensive schools no. 1 and 2 at which studies 582, from them 193 at evening school no. 2. An institution function at BV no. 35 Organization. Educational process in general education. Educational institutions of the city current academic year is provided by 1527 pedagogical workers.
Training in 1 change is organized in 21 organizations that makes 95.4% of pupils of their total.
Also in 2008 the first in Kiev region was open, Bila Tserkva Collegium, which took the advanced places in the city. In 2010 from it the first graduates were let out. The higher education. The Bila Tserkva National Agricultural University, Agrarian Scientific Education Center of Kyiv. In Bila Tserkva 16 higher educational institutions and 1 training courses. Institute of Economy and Right of Krok. Function. In them 14034 students study. Among them there are 3250 first-year students. Medical infrastructure is provided 8 medical institutions, 10 polyclinics, including 3 dental polyclinics, the Rehabilitation Center for Children with a Cerebral Palsy, Psychoneurological A Clinic, Sanatorium Dispensary, Oak Grove, Territorial and Medical Consolidation. Religion. In the city of the registered more than 30 religious communities, including 10 communities of Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Roman Catholic Church, the Jewish community, the Muslim community and others. There are 5 churches, a chapel, convent of St. Mary Magdalene equal to the Apostles, 4 houses of worship.
Bila Tserkva, the center of the Bila Tserkva Diocese of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. In Ukrainian Orthodox Church the following temples belong.
Space of Transfiguration Cathedral, St. Mary Magdalene's Church, Temple Chapel of the Saint Great Martyr George is the Victorious and Sacred Church of the Intercession. Bila Tserkva also has receipt of Christmas of the Ukrainian Greco-Catholic Church, which has no own temple yet, however the project of which already exists. The project was executed by the architect Babich Yuri Ivanovich.
On April 18, 2008, the attempt of Greek Catholic to consecrate a ground under construction of the temple ended with opposition with supporters of the Moscow Patriarchy.
Arboretum Alexandria. Here the unique collection of 15 sculptures from white marble of the famous Italian masters of the 19th century is exhibited. Local history, Subornia Square, for the considerable center, the city and regional center of culture, science and education, in which a large number of monuments of material and spiritual culture of the southern Kayashchina is collected. Electric communication to Boulevard is 50 years old of the victory, 23/1. Archaeological sites. 3 Bearers 3002 NE. Began 2000 NE. Poliva the Mountain, the settlement of Penkovsky culture. The 6th-7th centuries of NE. Russian ancient settlement of the 12th-13th centuries. Tserkva Hora and its vicinities, Detnets. The Lokan positions. The town of Yuryevo, Bila Tserkva in the 11th-18th centuries. Architecture sites. The State Dendrology Alexandria Park of Nan of Ukraine, the natural boundary, Poliva the Mountain. Building of Administration and Museum of the State Dendrology Alexandria Park of Nan of Ukraine. Brunitsky warehouses, the end of 18th, the beginning of the 19th century, Boulevard 50 Latia Pobody, 62. Ensemble of constructions of the post station, 1825, 1831, Boulevard 50 Latia Pobody, 41 I-45. Malls. Room. 1809-1814, the floor space. Winter Palace. Bila Tserkva School of Arts No. 1796, Boulevard 50 Latia Pobody, 7. House of Nobility Assembly, the 30th years of the 19th century, Boulevard 50 Latia Pobody, 5. In 2002 burned down, possibly an arson, on this place just the earth now, it is fenced with a fence. Street. Nicholas Church, 1706-1852 Gagarin Street. 10. Sacred Transfiguration Cathedral, 1833-1839 Gagarin Street. 10. St. John the Baptist Church, 1812 Cathedral Square, 4. St. Mary Magdalene's Church, 18th century, Shilnaya Street. 11/16. Tchaikovsky Water Tower. Uke. Russian, beginning of the 20th century. Sites. Monument to the founder of the city, to Yaroslav the Wise. Tserkva Hora. Stele in honor of a revolt under K. Kaczynski's leadership in 1591. Tserkva Hora. In honor of National Liberation Movement 1702-1704 under Semyon Pelaya's leadership, Poliva of Gore. The Arboretum Alexandria. Bogdan Khmelnytsky. The Park of T.G. Shevchenko. 2 Grenadiers of the 2nd Kiev Cossack Regiment created in Bila Tserkva, which took active part in War of 1812. Boulevard 50 Latia Pobody. 2 Taras Shevchenko. Cathedral Square. Monument to Piotr Zaporozhets, to one of organizers of the street. Petersburg Union of Fight for Release of Working Class. P. Zaporozhets Square. Memorable stele to the fighters of the Kiev International crew who died for the power of councils in 1919. Boulevard 50-letia Pobedy. To the victims of the Holodomor of 1932-1933. Yaroslav the Wise Street. To the fellow countrymen who fell on fronts of the Great Patriotic War. The Park of Glory. To the Soviet soldiers and soldiers of Czechoslovak crew who in January 1944 won the city from the German troops. Victory Square.
To the Soviet pilots liberators of Bila Tserkva in days of the Great Patriotic War.
Prince Vladimir Avenue. To teachers and students of Agricultural Institute. Died in days of the Great Patriotic War. Cathedral Square, Sculptors 5. S. Pietsky, B.
Lejeune the Architecto, K.
Stukalev. Memorial on the place of a Hitlerite concentration camp. Slomchinsky Street. To liberators of Bila Tserkva from Hitlerite aggressors, to thousands of tortured civilians. The Park of Glory. To liquidators and injured with accident in 1986 on the CDS, Chernobyl Bell. Levanevsky Street. To the Soviet tankmen liberators of Bila Tserkva from Hitlerite aggressors. Near the Arboretum Alexandria. To Carlson and Frockenbach.
The monument appeared thanks to carrying out the children's competition, Island of the Childhood, announced by the mayor in the spring of 2010.
Recreation Park of Taras Shevchenko. To Heroes of Space, for the significant contribution of Balachina to space exploration as Pavel Romanovich Popovic is Uzan's native. It is established in Recreation Park of Taras Shevchenko of 2011. Media. Since November 2011, broadcasting of television in digital DVB-T standard. 4 multiplexes is started. Taras Shevchenko was in Bila Tserkva several times. In 1845 he came here to examine the Alexandria Park, known for the beauty, and to get acquainted with history and architectural city monuments. Now by the name it is called the City Park, the area, one of the central streets and school. In the Alexandria Park, in honor of his Shevchenko's visit, the commemorative plaque is established. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.